Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video I'm going to show you one more build for Sauron, the so-called hybrid build. In my last video about Sauron I showed you two builds, being the focus damage build and the madness build. But this time we have a mix between those two builds. And the reason why we want this is because some people don't like to switch back and forth between the two meta builds. Some people prefer to have one universal build. And I must admit that Sauron truly lives up to his title, Lord of Gifts. He has so many various builds. I could name you 4 builds, like the madness build, the focus damage build, the hybrid build I'm about to show to you, and the glass cannon counter build, but that's not so universal, so let's leave it for another time. Sauron is very versatile, and in my opinion he has even exceeded my expectations in my tier list. I now consider Sauron the strongest commander on evil side. He has earned that ranking because of his versatility. You can't go wrong by fully committing into Sauron. But before we check out the battle reports of Sauron in his hybrid build, let me also show you which items I am equipping right now. So I have the Cowboy with Smite, that's just an obvious choice, Scale Mail with Melee Vigor, the Bone Mask with Hysteria, and the Smoking Pipe with Sustain, of course. This is scaling with Focus, lots of self-sustain for his 3-unit army. It's just perfect AoE healing for him. You can of course also go back to my Sauron guide. I have more items that I recommend in the purple and golden gear part. What you are seeing right now is a mix of Sauron's focus damage and madness build. It is a mix between both worlds, like the best points picked out here. He is providing strong madness mechanics with Ring of Terror, while also increasing the damage the enemy army receives because of the Deceiver, and also he has strong focus damage output while healing his own army. And just by putting 1 point into Overload, it's already good enough to scale with your focus and deal lots of damage. The same goes for Trembling Strike, everything scales with focus, and the same goes for Black Arts. All of these skills scale with focus. So you want to have as much focus as possible, and at the same time you want to prioritize pushing your focus stat as high as possible. Not just only to scale your skills that deal damage, but also, like, look at this, the Deceiver. The more focus you have, the more damage you are going to deal against the enemy army, be it Sauron's damage or your army's damage. This skill alone, when you max it out, you get plus 20 focus. The same goes for Lord of Gifts, plus 20 focus. And also, because you have maxed it out, you get plus 30 bonus stats. Guess what? That means even more focus. And look at Gorthor, plus 20 focus. So by having this spec, you provide lots of focus, which increases the damage debuff of the Deceiver. And also you have the benefit of madness procs, the benefit of focus damage while having self-sustain. But of course you can always switch your build to the madness build or the focus damage dealing build whenever you realize that the situation is demanding it. But enough of that, we are here because we want to see the results of the hybrid build. Now let's jump over to the battle reports. Let's check out what is happening over here. So the gear of Dwalin is this. He has a battle axe with flay, that is great. Superior hauberk with fire protection. Now in this case he didn't see it coming. This Sauron had focus damage as well. But he has a horseman's helm, which means he is kinda prepared to counter our madness mechanics. He just needs to max refine it. But he is kinda countering our madness build. But don't worry, in that case we still have enough focus damage output. And this is the benefit of the hybrid build. Whenever one build of yours gets countered, you still have the other one to rely on. And then he has Hiflane with Mend. And also quite some high respect level. Yeah, this Dwalin has lots of respect. And this is the outcome. We have done how much damage? Let's look in the snapshot page. 180k versus 250k. So this is kind of a loss for us, not just because of the damage we have received, but also we have 2 hard to conscript units in our army. So from an economy standpoint, Dwalin has won this trade-off. And in the detailed view, we see that everything is kind of low. So Dwalin was a good counter against this Sauron. And even though we just achieve a draw against this Dwalin, this is still kind of good because we can just continue as it is. We haven't really lost the fight, we just suffered from an economy standpoint. But that is the price you have to pay when you want to play Sauron in just one build. You can still get decent draws, but you can't really overwhelm the enemy. You could overwhelm the enemy by going back and forth between the madness and focus damage dealing build. But not everybody has enough gems to do that, so this is still a good option over here with the hybrid build. Here is a report against Gandalf the Grey, and we didn't change the build at all. In fact, we even took a big hit, and after that hit, Gandalf the Grey followed up. So we don't have 3k halberdiers, we don't have our 64 chariots, the gear still stays the same. This is a good outcome if you ask me. Now let's see if this Gandalf has decent gear. It is a cover with Smite, it is an Elven Cloak with Unity, so he is kind of pushing his White Council a lot, Trapper Suit with Hysteria, and a Smoking Pipe with Sustain. It is a decent Gandalf the Grey. And in regards to his army, it is a full army, full ranged army, being protected by his Arno T4 units. But that wasn't enough. The hybrid build still did a great job. In the snapshot page, we see we have done 210k damage versus around 85k damage. And here we see, alright, I can live with this result, it's kinda decent. Here we are fighting a good Eomer player, let's check out his gear. He has his Respect 10 item unlocked. How do we pronounce this name? Gufwin? Gufwine? Anyway, it is a great item, one of the best T2 items in the game. Like, if I had to choose, it would be either Gufwin or Gimli's Respect 10 item. Not quite sure which one is the best. And then we have the Scout's Mail with Shroud, the Horseman's Helm with Resolve, and it is max refined, so he is countering our Madness mechanic. Fiddle of the Elders with Blitz. So this is a good Eomer, but still it wasn't enough. He may have countered our Madness mechanics, but we still had our strong focus damage and the Deceiver debuff to rely on. And this is the outcome, 305k damage versus 220k damage. We can definitely live with this outcome, it is great overall. In this report we are taking Gimli on. Let's see what items he has. He has the Respect 10 item, Balin's Axe. It just needs further strengthening and refinement, but this is a good choice. Durance Plate, Resilience of Soldiers, Horseman's Helm with Resolve. And nowadays, many people who run multiple units in their army try to have Resolve, like Madness immunity, and that makes totally sense. So they are kinda hardcore countering our Madness build. And then Erebos Pride with Second Wind. As I see, this is the Respect 0 and 3 build, like the meta build. But that still wasn't good enough against the hybrid Sauron. You may have countered his Madness mechanics, but he still had focus damage, self-sustain, and also the Deceiver debuff on his side. We have done 320k damage versus 210k damage. This too is okay, like I can also live with this result. Here we are fighting against the strong Theoden. And by the way, Theoden is a hardcore counter against Sauron if you give him Madness immunity. Let's see what he has done. So he has Cutlass with Melee Might, Scale Mail with Melee Vigor, Horseman's Helm with Mounted Vigor. If he had the Resolve special effect over here, he could have countered our Madness mechanics and that would have been hardcore. On top of that, if he had the Quilted Armor with Focus Protection, he could have shut down 2 of our main mechanics, which could have been devastating to us. But luckily for us, that wasn't the case. And then he has the Heflane with Mend, and his build overall looks great. Like, I can't complain about this, it's just great. In the snapshot page, we see we have done 260k damage versus 230k damage. But I still consider this a bit of a win for us, since he has 3 hard to conscript units. So from an economy standpoint, he has lost the trade-off. And in the detailed view, we see that we have lost a lot of dragoons and chariots. Sauron himself did only just 100k damage in this case. Here we have a Gandalf the White report, and I see that I have lost many chariots. Alright, that's kind of curious. What gear does he have? Null Assault with Mind Split, Golden Skin with Fortitude of Cavalry, Grey Wizard's Hat with Fortitude of Cavalry again, and then Meara's Reins with Might of Cavalry. So this is a quite decent Gandalf the White in his mounted unit spec. Let's check out how much damage we have done. And as we see, it's like an equal amount. Like, we both have done around 225k damage. But let's look at the economy. He has 3 hard to conscript units, we only 2. And that means we haven't really lost this trade-off. It's kinda okay, not overwhelming, but still okay. And in the detailed view, we see that our army took a big hit, and because of that, they couldn't deal as much damage as Sauron did. Sauron has achieved this number because he has done focus damage. Gandalf the White didn't have high alert, so he couldn't mitigate our elemental damage, while Sauron also provided madness procs, and madness is just great against a 3-unit army. And guess what? Gandalf the White didn't have any madness immunities. So in this case, we benefited by both mechanics, his focus damage and also madness mechanic. Let's also follow up with a Gil-galad report. Let's see. He has the Elven White Knife with Bane of Giants, Mithril Coat with Tactical Maneuvers, and then he has the Arnor Cask. As a special effect, he has Warding. I assume that he expects lots of Witch Kings to show up, and with Warding, he can just counter the first round stun. But in this case, he isn't facing a Witch King, he is facing Sauron, and warding will do him no good. Instead, he needed resolve here. He has the Harp of Lothlorien with Elf Strength, and the skill points are just right. Like, this is a meta build Gil-galad. Very nice. Let's check out this snapshot page. We have done around 150k damage versus 210k damage. And I can already tell that we have lost this trade-off, but there are a few reasons for it. The first one being, we have 2 hard to conscript units, he just only has 1. Economically speaking, he has already won. But also because he has high alert. He has shut down our focus damage, which left us with our madness mechanics and the Deceiver debuff. But that kinda wasn't good enough, which led to this result. In the detailed view, we see that High Alert truly has countered Sauron's damage. You see, we can't even get close to 100k damage because of High Alert countering it. Now let this be my last report. Here we are fighting Aragorn. He has this army, like 2 decoys with evade. That is a great thing to do, and also 1 main tanky unit. It is a T2 unit. Those are knights. I assume that he has the full helm with the elemental damage mitigation for this specific unit. That makes a lot of sense. So already I can tell he is hardcore countering our focus damage. That means we have our madness mechanic and the Deceiver debuff to rely on. Let's see what is left of that. Let's check out his gear first. Battle Axe with Flay, that is great. Quilted armor with even more focus protection. Like, look at this. It's not just only the full helm with blinding barrier. In total, 90% focus damage mitigation right now for his knights. You can't have 100. 90 is the cap. He has reached the cap. We can't deal focus damage at all against this army. And he also has some self-sustain for his knights with Hiflane and Mand. This is a great T3 Aragorn. He is providing lots of damage with his active skills over here, and also further damage mitigation with King of Man. If maxed out, for 10 rounds, his man units receive 90% less damage whenever inflicted with stun or madness. So this commander is mitigating our damage by a lot. This is one of the few examples how to counter Sauron. And the point I wanted to make in this video was, like, he still has a decent hybrid build. It is taking the best parts of his focus damage build and madness build to bring you in a position where you can counter lots of different commanders instead of going back and forth between his 2 builds, being the focus damage and madness build. And that being said, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. I see you guys next time.